This video is brought to you by AG1. Now, if you're like me, you have an annoying habit of buying all these supplements and vitamins in the pursuit of being healthier. But they can collectively be very expensive, and let's be real, you stop after a week or so. That's why I'm glad to talk about today's sponsor, AG1. AG1 is my go-to morning supplement that contains a host of high-quality vitamins and nutrients. Seriously, the ingredient list in just one scoop is absolutely insane, supporting everything from stress management to focus to healthy aging and even gut health. All you do is mix it in with water and you're good to go. In fact, AG1's primary mission is to combine what you would normally get from multiple individual supplements. And in my opinion, they are the simplest yet most comprehensive supplement you could add to your day. And if you're interested, AG1 is offering you guys 5 AG1 travel packs with your first purchase, and a 1-year supply of these vitamin D3 and K2 droplets. All you have to do is go to drinkag1.com/Blameitonjorge to get your free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 and K2 droplets, as well as 5 AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Again, that's drinkag1.com/Blameitonjorge, or simply scan the QR code on screen right now. Thanks to AG1 for sponsoring this video. RBI, or the Reddit Bureau of Investigation. A place for Reddit users to come together and solve mysteries. Some mundane, others more serious. On July 9th, 2024, a user would post about a missing episode of a TV show that could solve a murder. Here's what it says. I spent years and hours through Google trying to locate this, and was advised you guys might be able to help. Trying to find what rerun episode of Unsolved Mysteries aired on a specific date/location that I'm convinced had a story of my ex-husband murdering a couple. I was at a hotel in Bakersfield, California on August 17th, 2000, and at 11 p.m., they had a rerun of Unsolved Mysteries on the TV. I have no idea what station would have played it. I'm watching them talk about a situation where a smooth-talking stranger gets himself invited into their home. I jokingly kept thinking to myself, yeah, I know someone smooth like that. This person ended up murdering the couple. Fast forward to the end, and they show a sketch. I literally sat up in my bed. It was my ex. Yes, he would have been capable of that, and I believe he would have been driving through the area around that time, angry that I just left him. I sent a detailed email to the show through their website a year or two later, but I had limited info on what case to tie it to. I have searched all these years to find this episode again, and can't. Never saw it on the old episodes available now. I tried searching for murder cases in Arizona with no luck, though it could have been in California or New Mexico. Too many years passed that I forgot the specifics. Are there any resources to find what episode would have aired that night in the city? This post gained a bit of traction, and Redditors were quick to reply. One user asked for more information, to which OP provided, I wish I had more specifics about the episode. This was before he could rewind TV, and the sketch grabbing my attention didn't show up until the very end. It took place in an isolated desert home. I believe it was only a couple that was killed, but honestly it might have been more people/family, I just don't recall. They showed that the strange man was invited into the home and sat talking with them in the living room. Smooth talking was definitely mentioned. I believe they said there was no robbery and he drove off in his own vehicle. I remember thinking the timing and area was right, so that would have put it in 1998. I thought in Arizona, but it could have been Southern California deserts or Western New Mexico. The sketch showed the man in a cowboy hat with a long, gaunt face. They mentioned he had dirty blonde hair. Tough, I know. I'll never forget that sketch. Is there a way to see sketches for unsolved murders in that time frame? I've never been able to find a resource myself. Now, OP claims to have seen this episode in the year 2000. By that point, Unsolved Mysteries had 11 seasons, all of which are available on YouTube. Despite this, it seems as though no one has been able to find this episode. The only one that's similar is a 1994 episode about Jonathan Francia, a man who was abducted in Albuquerque, New Mexico. A few days later, Francia's burned out car was found in Arizona, and in the trunk of the car was a body. The body was charred beyond recognition, but investigators believe it to be Francia. A sketch artist was able to create this image of the supposed suspect, and it was a man in a cowboy hat. But beyond the sketch, there isn't much else similar between these two cases. Taking a look at TV guides from that time and day, it seems that Unsolved Mysteries did, in fact, air on the Life channel at 8 p.m. on August 17th, 2000, but I couldn't find any episode description on newspapers.com. This has ultimately led some people to believe that the OP could have misremembered the show she was watching. Other crime programs like America's Most Wanted and 48 Hours aired around this time, and given that it was over 20 years ago, and the OP herself also admitted to have only paid attention once the sketch appeared, it's possible she could have gotten the show wrong. However, a part of me believes that if I saw a sketch of an ex-girlfriend who was suspected of having killed 2 people, I think I would remember the exact program it aired on, even after 20 years. The post ends with an update, stating that OP acknowledges the possibility that the sketch may have come from a different show. But up to this point, this user has not made any other posts about this topic, and she hasn't responded to many comments, leaving it utterly unsolved. Have you ever heard of Ninjai, the little ninja? It was a web-based animation series created by the Ninjai gang using Adobe Flash. Originally released in June 2001, the show centered around the life of Ninjai, a young swordsman with the combined skills of a ninja and a samurai. Ninjai traveled the world searching for his purpose, and he seemed to suffer from a form of amnesia. The series drew a strong following at the time due to its unique style and storyline. The animations were being made by actual martial artists, with the quality increasing steadily as the episodes progressed. However, with the release of episode 12, the production came to a pause. Shortly after that, it was announced that the group was going to abandon short-form animations and instead aim for a feature-length production with a complete studio. Unfortunately, nothing else was heard for many years. That is, until 2015. The group behind Ninjai posted media kits and wallpapers to Facebook and Twitter and asked their followers for advice on where to advertise Ninjai. On March 5th, 2015, a Kickstarter campaign was announced, but after discussing rewards and ideas for 5 months, it was never officially launched. Nevertheless, Ninjai seemed alive and well, as the Ninjai gang even set up a booth at New York Comic Con in 2021. At the time, the full-length feature production was advertised with a release date of January 2022. This is where everything began to go dark. As of early January 2023, the Ninjai.com website displayed a notice that it was, quote, under maintenance, and the Ninjai gang had stopped responding to inquiries. By the end of the month, the Ninjai.com domain had become completely unavailable, despite being registered until April 2025. Not only that, but even their social media channels ceased to exist. What's most interesting is that the group even went so far as to have the website omitted from the Wayback Machine. This quickly propelled the series into the world of lost media. Re-uploads of 12 Ninja episodes have been attempted by others, but even these began to be removed on websites such as Reddit. Anybody seeing this would assume that the Ninjai gang is doing everything possible to scrub the existence of Ninjai from the face of the earth. But why? One theory is that there are disputes by the original team as to the rights of the intellectual property. Another theory is that the group simply wants to control the presence of the content in order to monetize it at a later date, along with their planned feature-length film. However, there is a darker theory out there. One Reddit user, named IndividualOrange62, made a post on August 25th, 2022, claiming that the Ninjai creators are part of a cult. This Redditor, who claimed to be a member of the same cult, states that all Ninjai content was removed in order to avoid any online information tying to the cult leader who was involved in a media crisis. An article from the Hawaii Free Press is then shared, which mentions an alleged member of the Hare Krishnas, or ISKCON, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Although this is a Hindu religious organization, many people believe it to be a cult. The Hawaii Free Press article centers on a man named Sai Hansen, sorry if I mispronounced that, who was cited for operating a motor vessel without a license. Apparently, Hansen drove a 24-foot Zodiac speedboat, the same one that struck and killed 59-year-old Sri Shrim, and injured his adopted son, Trey Albrecht, on January 29, 2016. The Hawaii Free Press article contains a quote from an anti-cult website called Flashlights on Roaches that makes the connection between Hansen and the Ninjai gang. Other Redditors have echoed that the Ninjai gang is merely functioning to funnel money into the Hare Krishna organization. They refer to it as a cult. Take this post by Animation Geek Nerd as an example. There is no feature film coming, and there never was. Every 4 to 5 years they announce a film and gather funding for film investors, and then funnel it into their cult, Science of Identity Foundation. They are doing the same thing with other Team Ninjai projects like Karma Kula. They own other fake film studios like Sunset Studios, with projects like the Lost Sun. They scrub the internet of all these projects every few years and then extract more funding. Rinse, repeat. Internet Archive gets in the way of that fact. With allegations like this circulating, it's no wonder why they would want their identity scrubbed from the web. Despite the dark rumors, one thing is certain. Many people loved Ninjai the Little Ninja. In the age of Adobe Flash, Ninjai stood apart as a legitimate high-quality production from the animations to the storytelling. Many people, to this day, would still love to see a feature-length production. Though whether or not that will happen, only time will tell.
The NBC studios in Burbank, The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, featuring Kevin Eubanks and The Tonight Show Band, and me, I'm Ed Hall. Tonight, Jay welcomes Jerry Seinfeld.
So this next entry was something I was going to add in the last Spooky Lost Media video. It's a supposed disturbing event that happened on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, an iconic late-night talk show from the 90s and 2000s. The Reddit post is titled, "A Forgotten Incident on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno," involving a woman being accidentally wounded with a blade during a magic act. Last night, I came across a 4chan thread about crazy live TV moments. A poster made this comment about a moment that occurred on The Tonight Show. I went ahead and found an archive of the 4chan thread. It was posted on the TV board in April of 2022. After some scrolling, a user comments, "One time Jay Leno had a magician on his show, and he was doing some sort of cut the lady in half trick. He starts to cut, and the lady starts yelling for him to stop, like she was actually getting cut or about to get cut, and they start helping her out. I have never seen or heard anything else since, and never been able to find this clip." Circling back to the Reddit post, our OP continues, "I had never heard about this, so I did some Googling, and I found this old forum post from 2001 archived on Google. Then I found a similar thread." So here are two Google group threads from 2001 about this missing episode. One of them reads, "Did anyone else watch The Tonight Show with Jay Leno Monday night? It was a repeat. The one where they turned out all the lights in the studio and had a blackout. Anyways, so Arsenio Hall was the guest, and he was going to do a magic trick where he was going to cut a woman in half. So the woman is lying in the box, and he is trying to shove the blade through. And all of a sudden, she starts screaming and yelling, "It cut me." And like immediately, they cut to a commercial. I was like, what? It has to be a joke. So then when they came back from commercial, Jay seemed flustered, and they didn't mention anything else about the trick for the rest of the night. Did anyone see this? Does anyone know anything about what happened with this woman? It was so freaky. While this post didn't get many responses, one user did express skepticism. Here we go again. This was one of the few topics in here that got a number of responses. My opinion, and at least one other person's, was that it was a joke. If it had been real, there would have been some story about the actress getting hurt online somewhere. I looked all over the place, and nothing was ever mentioned. Even if she didn't get seriously hurt, it would have been mentioned somewhere online, in a news story, even if it was kind of a goof article. Also, if she was hurt, they wouldn't have used that episode to show again. This user does bring up a fair point. Most talk shows, to some degree, are pre-recorded, and if an incident like this had happened, it would have been edited out. Returning to the Reddit post, OP continues. It looks like this episode aired on June 21st, 2001. I do find it odd that outside of these old forum posts, I cannot find a single reference to this episode anywhere else. I tried looking at my resources, which are mostly private trackers, and found nothing. Leno was not beloved in the way that Conan or Letterman was, rightfully so. So a vast majority of old Tonight Show episodes barely exist in archives, because no one cared to record them. If anyone remembers this episode, or can somehow find this episode, please let me know. Just to clarify, the reason this episode had all the lights turned off was because California was in the midst of an energy crisis, so they filmed using candles. Strangely enough, while this unique episode has been mentioned plenty of times online, the part about the injured woman is often omitted. But I don't think there's some grand conspiracy to memory hole this entire incident. I think it's more likely that this was merely a joke, albeit a bit offbeat, but hey, it was the 2000s. This post was made 2 years ago, and as far as I'm aware, this episode has never been recovered, which makes a little bit of sense. I don't think there are many DVDs or reruns of late night talk shows, so it makes sense that they're primed for becoming lost media. Either way, I thought this was an incredibly fascinating Reddit post that I felt like sharing. In the 1970s, beloved children's poet Shel Silverstein recorded an album of perverse, obscene songs that became known as the Fuck 'em demos. The full recording is lost to this day. Can RBI help track it down? Shel Silverstein is an interesting person. He was an illustrator and a children's author, best known for his books The Giving Tree and A Light in the Attic. He was also pretty controversial, as his work was often contested by misguided parents. That's due in part to the themes Silverstein would tackle in his writings. He wasn't afraid to take children seriously and address serious topics: loneliness, anxiety, fear, responsibility, consequence, and so on. Ironically, what we're going to talk about is actually pretty controversial. Shel Silverstein was also a musician, and this Reddit post highlights one of his more obscure albums. It reads, I read a biography on Silverstein many years ago, and it mentioned that there are likely a lot of recordings, drawings, and poems by Shel that were either lost to time or remain unreleased in the Silverstein vault. As a huge fan, that really intrigued me. The book also made mention of a studio session that he did around 1970, in which he sat down with an acoustic guitar and cut an entire album's worth of adult-themed demos, with songs titles like I Love My Right Hand, I Am Not a Mac the Necrophiliac, and Fuck 'em. Supposedly, AM record bosses Herb Alperts and Jerry Moss were so offended by the lyrics that they refused to release the album and dropped Silverstein from the label altogether. The session came to be known as the Fuck 'em Sessions, and the book mentioned that the album could be tracked down in certain bootleg circles. I became mildly obsessed with finding it, and after sending countless emails to fans, scouring Google, and begging in bootleg forums, I found it. A fellow fan was incredibly kind and volunteered to send me a copy of a CDR that he bought years ago on eBay. Thanks to the kindness of that anonymous internet stranger, many people have now heard this album, and you can easily find it online. Here's where things get weird. The version of the bootleg that I received was apparently a very unique version. Not only does it include previously unknown songs, but interestingly, the most controversially titled songs were omitted. An internet search turned up an eBay auction from 1999 for a previously unknown acetates recording of the entire session. It sold for over $400 and went into the hands of a private collector. Here's the description from that auction. The album Acetates is both extremely rare and for adults only. No tapes will be made because part of its desirability is its exclusivity. Not one of the Silverstein fans I contacted through the web pages dedicated to him had ever even heard of the existence of the disc. While we still don't know for sure who won that auction, it appears to have been a person named Carol, who ran a Silverstein fan site. The problem is that the site hasn't been updated since 2003, and our email is no longer valid. I eventually tracked down a studio engineer that worked at A&R Records in New York, where the demos were supposedly recorded. And I was shocked to find out they had actually seen the acetate in the AR vaults, and had dubbed a copy for himself before retiring. I was on pins and needles, excitedly hoping that this was the end of my quest, but when I compared his version to my version, the song list was the same. His copy didn't sound quite as good, so the version that I initially found remains the highest quality copy of the recording available. The complete track list is as follows, and then OP lists all the songs and all the ones that are missing. Here's where RBI comes in. Can Reddit help solve this mystery? Are there any Silverstein collectors out there who have a copy of it, or who can point me in the right direction? Are there other Silverstein bootlegs that exist that I am unaware of? Does anyone know a big Silverstein fan named Carol who may have bought this acetate on eBay? The copy that I received and helped spread online sounds like it was taken directly from a master tape, so I would assume that there are likely at least a handful of acetate copies in the hands of private collectors. Even after years of searching, I still have so many questions. Help. So here we have a pretty detailed post about a quite explicit album Silverstein made in the 1970s. The OP did manage to get their hands on a version of the album, however, about half of the songs were missing, which means a good chunk of this album is still out there. It turns out the full album was bought by a fan named Carol, and although Redditors were able to track her down when asked about the eBay auction, she simply didn't respond. Another Redditor suggested contacting Dr. Demento, who hosted a radio show in the 1970s that frequently played Silverstein's music. Opie thought this was a good lead and decided to pursue it. Unfortunately, with no further updates for the past 5 months, besides some replies and some removed posts, this mystery has gone completely cold. Very recently, on July 15th, a viewer of mine commented about a lost YouTube video titled Suicide Mouse Real Version. I've heard about this topic before on the Lost Media Wiki Discord forums. To get everyone up to speed, suicidemouse.avi is a classic creepypasta from 2010. While it's kind of corny nowadays, this kind of content is extremely nostalgic for me. The story is about a supposed unreleased Mickey Mouse short, in which Mickey Mouse is walking in some type of city. The animation loops for several minutes, and weirdly enough, the background music is a disoriented mishmash of piano notes. Suddenly, the episode cuts to black, and the sound of white noise can be heard. Sometime later, the animation does come back, but now it's distorted. And I must warn anyone who hasn't seen the video, what follows is incredibly disturbing audio of a woman screaming. Now, what's interesting about this creepypasta is that due to its popularity, there are several fan-made iterations of the lost episode. It feels like there's a new one every year, and some of them are genuinely freaky. But what I didn't expect was for someone to create a realistic version. And that's what brings us to this entry. Suicide Mouse Realistic Version was a YouTube video uploaded in 2011 by a channel called Daniel Magia. The video was in Spanish and had 2 parts to it. Looking at an archive of this channel from 2011 shows that the first part was just over 2 minutes long, and part 2 was about 9.5 minutes long. In fact, part of the second video has been recovered. Before we take a look, I must issue another warning for headphone users, as the audio is distorted and abrasive. The beginning of the video starts out like the original creepypasta, but the city is replaced with different buildings, and there's a flicker effect. Suddenly, the screen cuts to black before this happens. The footage of Mickey Mouse walking becomes more and more distorted until there is nothing left of it. Text can be seen, telling the viewer to not look behind them and that the shadows are watching them. Typical creepypasta spooks. Beyond this, there isn't much else known about this lost creepypasta. There's a very dead subreddit with hardly any users, and a post on the Creepy Videos wiki. This post isn't properly sourced, so take what it says with a grain of salt. But according to this wiki, the first part would have began with a content warning. Then a gray mouse with a realistic rat head would appear. A low-pitched voice would have told the legend of the suicide mouse before the video would end, advertising the second parts for Halloween that year. And that's mostly all that's known about this lost YouTube video. I'm someone who enjoys this trend of creepypastas coming back to find the origins of like images and stories and stuff, so I just had to throw this in here.